look at you printing out graphs and stuff. That's working smarter, not harder. I'm over here writing stuff down.
It's all right here.
Where'd you get that? Oh, is that the table that Chris put together?
Yeah, it's in the State Journal.
That's from the State Journal. Look at that. Look at Chris Hubbock go. That's some good quality
putting out the
journalism.
good information.
Some quality journalism right there.
There you go.
All right. What's up, everybody? Corey Singletary here with another episode of CUB Tracks, along with
Tom Content, Citizens Utility Board. Welcome.
And welcome to everyone. And before we jump in, as usual, please make certain to like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. It really helps out the channel, and that way also you don't miss any future episodes. And we got a couple of things we wanted to talk about today. Before we dive in, I understand you wanted to give a plug for something that's coming up this week.
Coming up this week, just double checking. It's on the 21st, right? 21st? There we go. Why isn't it on? There it is. Good enough. It's on my calendar.
There you go.
Should be on your calendar because you're a guest star.
Yep.
So we've got a residential webinar for residential customers about Wisconsin's affordable clean energy transition. So we want to spotlight affordable in this transition. But we're bringing on a couple of experts from various parts of the industry. So we've got Nick Hyla from the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, who was on the recent podcast. We've got Scott Coonan from the Wisconsin Conservative Energy Forum, and then Corey bringing in some CUB perspective on an affordable clean energy transition. So that's noon on Thursday the 21st, and details to register are on the CUB events page.
All right, cool. So, yeah, if you're interested in that, feel free to register, and hope to see some of you following along. So the first thing we wanted to hit was a scam alert.
That's right.
And it's timely that you had mentioned Nick Hyla. A couple of weeks ago, we sat down with Nick, and one of the things that we talked about in that conversation was sort of the maturing of the solar industry and the renewable industry. And in that conversation, it was about making certain that if people want to get solar, that they, make certain they get 3 bids and all those types of diligence items. But also part of it was that the renewable industry is trying to work on, weeding out bad actors. And one of the things that crossed our desk that got flagged was a large number, an increase in the number of scam reports or complaint calls regarding less than desirable or shady behavior on the part of solar installers. The alert that we saw was coming from Iowa, but I don't know if you wanted to...
Yeah, the Iowa Attorney General's office looks like they're doing an investigation because there's an increase in customers who've been scammed, solar installers claiming to offer tax credits when there wasn't a tax credit available, or just not delivering the goods, basically. So it's important to really, get those 3 bids. You may want to consider the contractors that have been involved in the Wisconsin group buy programs because they're established. But the Department of Ag and Trade and Consumer Protection actually has a solar power buying tips fact sheet that's available. It's on their website. We'll put a link in that actually goes through, and they worked hand in hand with experts in the solar sector, including Renew, to really get good information out there on being judicious about who don't believe it. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So if they're promising free energy bills for the rest of your life, maybe it's time to check around some more, right?
Yeah, just because the word solar is involved doesn't mean that it's automatically great. Not all solar projects are created equal. So, make certain to do your diligence, and also report any behavior that you find is not up to snuff, or you feel is taking advantage of customers. You can call DATCAP, their consumer protection line, as well as other folks that work in this area, whether it be MREA or Renew, that work more directly with installers. They can be a really good resource in terms of vetting vetting solar installers so that you don't get taken advantage of.
That's right. We don't want that.
All right. So the news item that we wanted to touch on, I think the big one that's made the press, we were talking about it earlier, Chris Hubbock of the Cap Times wrote a story. State Journal, sorry.
I know, it feels like they're the same.
Wisconsin State Journal, the Madison area paper, wrote a story on it. But that is the announcement by Alliant Energy and We Energies to delay the retirement of some of their coal plants.
That's right. We've got multiple coal plants being delayed with citing a variety of factors, but the solar supply chain issues on getting the new solar projects online on time, and then also some of the challenges that we're seeing in national and regional reports on reliability. Initially, the utilities had kind of said, well, we're fine for the summer of 2022, but it seems like going beyond 22 and into 2023, now we've got some challenges, or at least some risks that the utilities didn't want to risk not having some of these resources online.
Yeah. So for Alliant Energy, they had announced at various times that they had planned to retire the Edgewater coal plant by the end of this year.
In Sheboygan.
And by the end of this year, and that they were going to retire the 2 units at Columbia in 2023 and, by the end of, in 23 and in 24, unit 1 and 2. So by the end of 2024, the Columbia plant would be entirely shut down. So, but those dates have then been pushed out. Edgewater goes from the end of 2022 to no later than June 1st, 2025. And then Columbia as a plant, we'll just consider the whole plant, Alliant plans to have that fully shut down no later than June 1st of 2026. So anywhere from about an 18-month delay, about a year to 18-month delay for these facilities, depending on how you're looking at it. I mean, depending on what happens with Columbia Unit 1, that is potentially almost a 2.5-year delay in the retirement of that facility. And then We Energies, they had announced the retirement of their South Oak Creek power plant, which is the second large coal plant retirement after Pleasant Prairie, which was a few years ago. And they had originally planned to retire that whole plant by May of 2024. They were going to retire half of it in 23 and half of it in 24. And that's been pushed out basically by a year. So their current plan is that by the end of May in 24, they'll shut down the first 2 units, and then by the end of 2025, they'll have the entire facility shut down. So, some non-trivial delays, anywhere from a year to, depending on how you're looking at it, 2.5 years to 3 years for some of these individual units at these coal plants. You talked about some of the causes, but I mean, kind of when you look at it, what's kind of your take on what's going on?
Well, I think we've really got. The utilities are saying that they're still committed to shutting these things down. They've still got a capital plan that calls for massive investment in solar, massive investment in battery storage in the case of We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service. We've still got a lot. We've still got, from CUB's perspective, we still have to deal with the fact that these plants are going away in the next few years, and we don't want customers saddled with extra costs for dead plants, or what some are calling now zombie plants. Once they're gone and not needed to keep the lights on, we still have to keep the focus on saving customers money there, because we need every option we can to save customers money. But it is challenging for the environmental groups are concerned on this, because obviously they've been pushing for coal to go away very aggressively, but they are still going away, and it just doesn't adjust the long-term trajectory of the transition.
Yeah, it's just sort of an adjustment in the near term. Which, if you were really looking forward to, slightly cleaner air and less coal being burned in Wisconsin, I can see that would be very disappointing.
Or coal trains going through your backyard, depending on which part of your state you're in, right? So.
Yeah, that I know for a lot of people that's definitely something that they're not going to miss. But I think you hit on a good point. Is that if we back up a little bit, all of these events, the decision to retire these plants, the decision to replace them with new facilities, primarily solar and battery storage, some new natural gas, but to replace them with cleaner generation. That was all initiated by the utilities. And the utilities have decided, look, going forward, our portfolio of the future is renewable, it's clean, it's less emitting from the standpoint of greenhouse gases and other pollutants. And as you said, the long-term trajectory is there. And one of the things that I've heard folks raise a concern about is that with all the talk in the press more generally about reliability, and since some of this discussion is related to ensuring reliability, is that some people are concerned that people are going to start making the claim that, well, they're delaying these plants because the renewable resources aren't reliable enough. Right, and essentially blaming all of this on renewables, and really that's the wrong message. From our perspective, we're primarily looking at cost, but the other part is risk, right? And to a certain extent, the utilities, their original plan was really nice from the standpoint of it was almost sort of a Walmart just-in-time sort of approach, right? Like they would shut the coal. They scheduled the shutdown of the coal plants to coincide very close with when they expected to have their new resources online. But that left a smaller margin if schedules slipped or anything like that. And essentially what they're trying to do now, especially I think with the schedules that Alliant has put out now, pushing things out to 25 and 26, moving Edgewater from 2022 to potentially as late as 2025, is they're really trying to give themselves a flexibility so that they can bring on the new resources and ensure that they have everything they need to make certain the lights stay on, and before they pull the plug on these coal resources. So I think it does a disservice to customers, to utility customers, as well as advocates on any side of this issue, to turn this somehow into this is all the fault of renewables. It really is more of a market rules problem, but an issue related to how the utilities get credit for their resources. You mentioned supply chains, things like that, and that's kind of I think one of the things that jumped out at me when we started looking at this and people started asking us about our take on it, is that we really need to be focused on the right issues.
Yeah, well, that blame game is happening all over the country. I mean, look at the people were blaming the Texas blackout last year on the renewables weren't working, but it was really the natural gas infrastructure and even the coal infrastructure was frozen during that week. And even this week with the hot temperatures in Texas, there was an unexpected number of coal and natural gas plants that were out of service. And they avoided rolling blackouts, but they had to have multiple calls for conservation to keep things stable this week. So it is an interesting time, but the blame game, blaming renewables isn't really the appropriate in this matter, if you will.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that for us, we're an evidence and data driven organization, and if people go off on a tangent of talking about how this is all renewables' fault or something like that, we miss the actual issues, right? Like. Alliant, in the conversations we've had with them, and it's been in the press, is they're concerned about the timing of when the regional market, the grid operator wants to change the rules of how the utilities get credit for the resources, to how they prove that they have enough generation to keep the lights on, and the timing of that change, because they're proposing a change to that. Supply chain issues, things of that nature, and how those affect in-service dates. And there are cost implications to some of these things too. We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service Corporation are in for a rate case right now, so we'll have to see what the rate impact is. And we'll have to see what the rate impact for Alliant is too of changing the schedule on this. So those are, from our perspective, those are the real issues.
Right. I mean, that's a concern because with coal prices are up like a lot of things right now. I mean, a lot of attention has been placed on inflation of all stripes, if you will, but coal prices in our sector are up in part because of the price of diesel, but other factors too. So as it relates to the rate cases and customers' electric bills in the next couple of years, a lot has to be sorted out in the rate case. But then on the fuel side of utilities bills, there's cost pressures. We've been talking a lot on the podcast about cost pressures for natural gas, but cost pressures for natural gas and coal.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. A lot of this is sort of, some of this is TBD, and one of the things I will note is based on our understanding of kind of how Alliant Energy is approaching this is they've said by June 1st of 2025 and 2026, Edgewater and Columbia respectively will be shut down. But they took an approach, or they've described it as wanting to be sort of conservative with this new date that they throw out. They don't want to have to push it out again for a variety of reasons. One, it's not a good look, but also there are practical implications in terms of MISO and the regional market and when you get to shut things down. I believe their hope is, if they can, to bring those retirement dates up earlier, which would definitely folks who want to see those plants shut down earlier, that'll make them happy. So
yeah, and one other point on the people concerned about clean air and running coal. The way the utilities, at least the We Energy's utility, is talking about this plant in particular, the older Oak Creek plant, it's not the workhorse it's not a workhorse power plant the way some of its other plants are, and it's almost, if you could think of it in our industry, it's called peakers, right? That are the ones that are only used some of the time, and their intent, in part because they want to keep their carbon emissions coming down, but also because of the age of the facility too. Their intention is not to be running this 24/7 while it remains in service. It's there kind of as a risk mitigator.
Yeah. Well, it's yet one more thing to keep an eye on, but we will continue to monitor it. I'm sure folks out there who are really interested in the decarbonization of our economy and our electric grid will also follow along closely. But yeah, I think
we'll be digging into this as part of the We Energy's and Wisconsin Public Service rate case.
Yeah. So I think that does it for us today. Thanks for following along, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.